For joining in. Trying to get everything set up here.
Do we have anybody coming besides agents?
We do. We have some, there's just kind of a variety of people, a lot of agents, obviously, which is great. And yeah, a few other people, I think I just saw Ed hop on. That's on here. How's everyone's day going?
Good.
Good. I think I have everyone muted. I'm trying to manage everyone.
Are we supposed to mute?
Yeah, we'll mute once, we'll give it a couple minutes here, and
Okay.
then we can mute. Okay. Okay. Awesome. Getting more people hopping on here. I don't know why I had the waiting room set up. That was kind of confusing. Sorry about that. Can you hear me okay?
Yes.
Okay, good. I have to hide the glare in my living room here. Okay. So it's almost Friday. That's a plus. Even though every day is like Groundhog Day, it really doesn't make a difference. But okay, what else do we have here? Okay, hold on. More people hopping in.
Obviously than they are today, but still, a sexual relationship between a DA and his student was not looked upon too fondly.
Okay, we'll give it like 2 more minutes here. Give me 1 second, I'll be right back. Okay. Right. Well, I will go ahead and I'll just get started here. I want to try to keep this to right around 20 minutes. Hopefully, I'll talk fast. But thank you so much for joining in. I greatly appreciate everyone tuning in today and giving me 20 minutes of their time. I thought it was important to make sure that we talk about what's happening with real estate right now. For those of you, I know mostly everyone that's on, but for anyone that doesn't know me, my name is Ashley Miller, and I am the sales director with Howard Hanna Real Estate out of the Butler office. And so I want to just talk a little bit about what's happening right now. Obviously, we are all sitting in the same situation. Most of us are unable to work, we're at home, and we're listening to the news, and we're just we don't know what to expect. We don't know what's happening. So I thought it would be good for us to to talk a little bit about real estate and what's happening and how it's affecting us during this present COVID-19 illness pandemic and essentially the global downturn, recession that we're now moving into. So 2 big things that I want to make sure that we cover are what can we do to survive and how can we take advantage and thrive in a recession type of environment. So let's talk about what is a recession. So according to the National Bureau of Economic Recovery, a recession is a significant decline in economic activity that it typically lasts around 6 months, and it affects the GDP, income, employment, production, and sales. So essentially every aspect of the economy. It is a time in which the economy is forced to decrease its growth pattern in efforts to stabilize. So, you know, looking back, we've actually had 47 recessions in US history, which is, you know, it's amazing to think about. A recession occurs typically roughly every decade, typically. The job market becomes much less stable, unemployment increases, banks and lending requirements become more strict. And as a homeowner, we become weary of what's happening to the value of our home, of our investment. Looking, you know, just a quick breakdown of the last 5 recessions that we've had. You know, the 1980s recession, you know, that was really, it was waging a war with inflation. Mortgage rates peaked at 18.45%. I mean, that's insane to think that, you know, interest rates were at 18.5% almost. You know, home ownership affordability dropped to an all-time low because it was almost impossible to buy a home at that point. And it was long. It took, you know, over a decade to really recover from that. And then in the 90s, you know, we had the whole .com bubble that burst, and the September 11th, you know, attacks that brought us into another brief recession. And then, you know, from there, the 08, the mortgage subprime crisis, which led to the collapse of the US housing bubble. Home values were at an all-time high at that point. I mean, it was insane. And, you know, with the mortgage subprime crisis, that trickled down to the collapse of many large financial institutions, and the automobile industry was affected. You know, so just looking back on the recessions that have occurred in the past, and what's happened presently, you know, right now we have 2 factors that are leading us to where we are today. We obviously have this, you know, the COVID-19 illness pandemic that was sprung on us in March, that really started, you know, in China back in fall of 19, November, December of 19, but it really just hit us essentially in March. You know, so we have this illness pandemic that is leading us to where we are and halting our economy. But then we also have this massive debt. We have $29 trillion in corporate debt that is out there. And, you know, so that's brought us to a point in early March where we have just this burst of what they're calling the corporate debt bubble. You know, so that's what's leading us to where we are right now into this, you know, the next phase of a recession. I thought it was interesting, you know, to break down just, and this was just general as in the US. If you look in the gray area, the columns, those are the recession periods. And then of course the graph is what's happened to, you know, to home values. You know, so really through the 80s, you know, up until the whole, you know, mortgage subprime.com turn, you know, right around the dot-com turn of the century, that's really when home values just greatly peaked. I mean, just increased at such a rapid growth rate. I mean, it's crazy to look at. And clearly that bubble burst with the mortgage subprime crisis right around 07, 08 era. You know, home values came down, and they really kept falling down up until 2012 era, which is where 2012 is where we really kind of have rebounded the last 8 years. And the rates really and the values have greatly inclined since 2012. One of the key differentials between 08 and where we are in 2020, you know, from the 08 to 2012 period, there was so much inventory. The foreclosures were at an all-time high. There was so much inventory that the values just kept dropping. And we finally were able to stabilize from that right around the 2012 era. And then that growth started to come back. You know, reading a lot of articles, looking at things, you know, we're not in that same state right now. Presently, we've actually had a shortage of inventory. Coming out of 19 into 20, we have had a shortage of inventory out there. There have been a lot of buyers who have been, you know, wanting to take advantage of the low interest rates, and we've had a shortage of inventory. So I think that's one of the key differentials between where we are today and where things were in 08. You know, so it's predicted that we're not going to have that great downfall that we did, but as with any recession period, it is going to affect home values. They're going to start to decline. I just don't forecast, and it doesn't appear that it's going to be at a huge substantial rate, but we're at a peak right now. And, you know, coming out of 19 into 20, we were on an incline. So we've now hit that peak to where it's going to plateau off, and it's going to come down with the period of the recession in the economy. Again, I thought this was kind of interesting just to pull some of the housing values. And this is strictly for Butler County. These are statistics right out of West Penn Multilist. So if we look at where prices were, let's say just looking at 2016 to 2020 in January. From 2016 to 2020, there's roughly been a $50,000 increase in values, which is, wow. I mean, that's phenomenal. I mean, there's been such growth in property values. It's phenomenal. You know, so if you're looking at a standpoint of, if you're thinking about selling your home at any point in probably the next 6 months to a year, we're at our peak right now, and it's only going to decline from there. It's been on a great increase, and you know, so it is a period right now at this point in time, even though there's a lot of scary stuff happening, that there are still buyers out there. So it's, you know, it's something to certainly consider. You know, you're better off looking at where the market is right now versus in 6 months when we're going to be in a full-fledged recession period. So as a homeowner, there's a lot of hardships going on. People are being furloughed, laid off, unemployed. You know, should you stop paying your mortgage? These are things that we're hearing on the news. You know, don't worry about it. You know, they can't foreclose on you. You can't be evicted if you're renting. You know, yes, you do have, you know, protection right now with the illness, that you do have that, you know, brief period. But as far as home ownership and your mortgage, you know, mortgage forbearance, yes, it is an alternative to foreclosure. It's usually the preliminary stage prior to foreclosure, depending. But it's certainly not a get out of jail free card. You're not able to just stop making your payments. You're going to have to pay for it at some point in time. A mortgage forbearance, it's brought on with long-term illness. If you're unemployed or have any other hardship, forbearance is available to you. What happens, you can either make no payment, you can just make interest-only payments for a period. You know, sometimes it's 90 days, sometimes it's up to 6 months. Talk to your mortgage holder to find out what their terms and conditions for mortgage forbearance are. But the one key to remember are that you have to make up these payments at some point in time. It's not as if it's just going to disappear. And oftentimes at that 7th month, you may be required to make the 6 months worth of missed payments in that 7th month, or they'll give you some sort of a payment plan. But the idea is that you're still going to have to pay this. So if you're in a hardship now, just now being unemployed, it potentially could be difficult for you to come up with, you know, the month's payments that you were able to defer. And a lot of times what happens, you know, the forbearance is the first step. And then if they can't make those payments at month 7, it ends up going into either short sale or foreclosure status. So if you can avoid, you know, the factor of not, you know, keep paying your mortgage, you know, try not to look into that forbearance unless you absolutely have to. But of course, consult your mortgage lender, your holder. They'll give you their options. They'll tell you what they can offer available to you. But just know that it's not a get out of jail free card, that it is something that you're going to have to continue to make your payments and maybe even come up with a large lump sum at once. Next, is this a good time to sell your home? So again, kind of referencing back to those charts and graphs, 2020, in fact, may be the best time to put your house on the market. And again, just looking at the statistics of where the values were 4 or 5 years ago versus where they are now, you know, it's going to take, you know, a good 4 or 5, 6 months before they're going to start to come down. So if you're thinking about selling, now is probably going to be your peak opportunity to maximize your value. If you bought your house in the last 5 years, you still love it, you don't want to part with it, then maybe you want to wait 5 years, you know, wait till we're out of this period and we've fully recovered. But it's not going to be anytime soon. Obviously, we can't predict what's happening. But if you're weighing your options and thinking about selling in the next year or two, now potentially is the time to maximize your value. 4 reasons to sell your house in 2020. We still have a lot of buyers entering the market, and those buyers are going to be more financially qualified because of the tightened regulations. They're going to be more solid buyers. Interest rates are still low and they're expected to remain low. If you have substantial equity in your home, take advantage of maximizing, maximizing your market value now, potentially later in the year or 2020, because we have no idea what's going to happen, and how long this recession. It could be 6 months, it could be 2 years. We have no idea. The average recession tends to last about 1.5 years, looking back at those stats. So should I buy or build a new home as a buyer from that standpoint? There's some questions you have to ask yourself. Obviously, do you have stable employment? Do you have savings, or are you trying to buy a house with no money down? The days of that have gone. There were a point the last few years where yes, they're advertising with FHA and VA and USDA loans that you can get into a house with no money down. You're still going to be able to have some options, but the buyers now are going to have a little bit more of a savings and be a little bit more solid to be able to qualify. Right now, what's going to happen, rental rates are going to increase with people with affordability. So your rent rates are going to increase. You could potentially own right now for less than what you could rent. So again, if you've got the employment and if you have a little bit of savings to be able to buy, you may want to take advantage of that. And home values are unpredictable. We can gauge where they're at right now, but we have no idea where they're going to be at next month or in the next 6 months. And ultimately, as a buyer, you have less competition, right now because of the tightening on the requirements. So, you right now we do have a shortage of inventory, and there are a lot of multiple offers happening, but it just depends. But as a whole, there's going to be much less buyer competition out there. Investor options, again, moving into a full-blown recession, that's a great time to take advantage of getting either into investments or to grow your investment portfolio. There's going to be an increase in foreclosures, short sales, REOs, just based off of a recession and the poor economy. What's going to happen, again, looking at the forbearance period of time, that in the next 6 to 9 months, when those forbearance agreements become due or employment is not reactivated, and you can't make your payment, we're going to see, those forbearance homeowners now moving into the foreclosure and short sale status level. The advantage of buying foreclosure short sales is that you're buying into properties that are below market value. So oftentimes just with the purchase, you're already ahead because you're picking up the equity that potentially is in that by buying it under market value. And there will be a demand for rental properties, as we know, for the tightened lending requirements, that there's going to be less people able to qualify. So from an investment standpoint, you may want to defer some of your investments that you pulled out of the stock market. Now may be the time to invest that back into real estate. Real estate has been a very stable investment for many, many decades. In the Pittsburgh economy, we're very fortunate. We have a lot of healthcare, we have a lot of tech. We also weren't hit nearly as hard, even with the last, huge 2008 economic issue. It hit us a little bit, but not nearly as detrimental as a lot of the other country has. So, you may want to consider getting into investments if you don't currently. So how can a real estate agent help me now? Well, for sellers, the first thing I would recommend is find out what your home is worth in today's immediate market conditions. Based off of today's snapshot, find out what your home is worth. Second, maximize the market value before the next 4, 5, 6 months when we're in a full recession. And if you are financially strained, if you're having difficulty making your mortgage payments now, you may want to consider selling it now and downsizing yourself into a smaller payment, into a smaller home, or maybe even renting. but get yourself out of it before you get to a point that you are in full-blown foreclosure status and have the after effects of that. And then as far as the buyer standpoint, our agents are able to help you with obtaining a mortgage pre-approval. You want to make sure that you find out what your lending qualification options are. That's the very first thing you do before you even ever think about buying or building, is let's see what we qualify for. And then at that point, schedule a buyer consultation with an agent and sit down and come up with a game plan for your home search process. And again, home ownership has always been a very stable investment. If you have the ability and you've had the desire to want to have a home, now essentially could be a great time to take advantage of that. And now that we're all home and we're not able to be essentially out there in the field working, we're working in what we call a virtual world. And the great component with that is that all of our Howard Hanna agents were fully equipped to take on all of your needs in a virtual world. We've got so much tools and technology to help you right from the comfort and safety of your home. So, don't let the being stuck indoors keep you from considering, selling or buying a home. We can absolutely help you, and our agents are trained and they're excited to help you from this whole new virtual world of things. Lastly, thank you. Thank you for joining in. I was trying to keep it quick, so right around 20 minutes. If you have any questions or if you want a copy of this, just shoot me a text, give me a call, or email to ashley.miller@howardhanna.com. All right, guys, that's all. Thank you so much. Bye.